we require an originary explication of time as the horizon of the understanding of being, in terms of temporality, as the being of Dasein who understands being. What? In part 1, which you can see here, we looked at some fundamental Heideggerian concepts that make up the phenomena of human experience, like state of mind, discourse, and das Man. These are concepts that provide a framework for human consciousness. They make up being. But to really understand being, we have to also understand time, which Heidegger turns to in Division 2. As the title of Heidegger's principal work suggests, being and time is fundamental to our understanding of being. What it is to be is inherently linked to what time is. Heidegger argues that time is responsible for the unity of Dasein. That means that it's time that makes experience, human experience, subjectivity, consciousness, cohesive. As we saw in the last video, being finite rather than infinite is what gives humans the ability to act uniquely, because infinity presupposes the ability to do everything. But human experience isn't stretched out and infinite. It's finite, it's encapsulated, and time is experienced in the same way. Our normal understanding of time is also one that is infinite. Time in our normal understanding is a straight line that goes backwards or forwards linearly and infinitely. We can imagine it going on forever. But if we think carefully about time, this is not our experience of it at all. One of the equiprimordial ways we experience the world is with care. In other words, we care about the world in some way. We want to do something in the world, even if it's something as simple as walking around or picking something up. To understand care, then, we must have a goal, and that goal is temporal. We project an idea into the future. For example, I might want to walk over there or pick up and drink from that mug. Or I might want to watch this video on Heidegger. Heidegger says then that we live ahead of ourselves. Time then ties together all the different phenomena that we looked at in Division 1. For Heidegger, we don't exist in time, but as time. We are time. In other words, we think about the past, the present, and the future all at once. Heidegger writes that temporalizing does not signify that ecstasis come in a succession. The future is not later than having been, and having been is not earlier than the present. Temporality temporalizes itself as a future, which makes present in a process of having been. He's infuriatingly convoluted, but what he means is that the past, the present, and the future are jumbled up in human experience. As William Blattner writes, existence or projection is not futural by aiming itself at a possible future state of the self, and facticity or attunement is not past by revealing historical episodes or states. They are futural and past, rather, in a non-successive sense. In other words, we can imagine a future that will not come, or ruminate over a past where we might have done things differently, and all in an arbitrary, non-systematic order. We ourselves move time about in our heads, like a game of checkers or chess. So there is one possible future here, that you continue watching this video until the end. But you might think about what I just said in the past, become bored and look over here, think about some alternative future where you're watching a video about cats instead. Heidegger calls moments like this moments of vision. He calls this understanding of time originary temporality. Heidegger compares this to two other ways we encounter time. Ordinary time, which is linear time, a pure succession of nows, and a world time, as concepts that are defined and articulated by human interests, as in dinner time, or the Great Depression, or rush hour. Ordinary time seems to level off and cover up the significance of what world time really is, and world time simultaneously seems to do the same to the originary temporality of Dasein. Originary temporality, then, is the only real understanding of the phenomenon of time as we have access to it. To put it another way, when we think of time, we think of the clock. The clock moves in a predictable, coordinated way. But we invented the clock so as to organise ourselves as a species, and we base the predictable coordination on something as arbitrary as the Earth revolving around the Sun, as objective as it gets, but still only a temporary phenomenon. In other words, this idea of time, this way of doing things that we invented, will expire. It will run out. In our heads there are multiple clocks and calendars, and we imagine different versions of 3 o'clocks. What should I have for lunch? Or summers, where should I go on holiday? Or, as William Blattner explains, a Thunderbolts game might be marked on the calendar and understood as a future event, but that doesn't mean it might not be rained off and cancelled. The linear future is simply one we invent, predict, project towards, but it still emanates from us. This understanding of time exists prior to the linear one that we enter our plans into to remind ourselves and others what we're doing and where we're going to be. Amazingly, although it seems completely counterintuitive to how we think of time as linear, Heidegger's understanding of time is much more compatible with modern physics and Einstein's theory of relativity, that time is something that is subjective and personal. Time is like elastic. It can stretch, twist, break, and is completely different for each person. If you want to support Then and Now, then please subscribe below, and most importantly, click the bell here to receive notifications when I upload a new video. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram in the links in the description below. And if you're feeling really generous, then this channel only exists through the support of pledges on Patreon, where you can support new content with as little as $1 for each new video. Thanks for watching. See you next week.